Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet and Good Torah. So today is the total solar eclipse over America. What's the mystical meaning? What message is Hashem trying to send us? What is He teaching the world? And is it a sign that we're close to Yom Moshaich, the days of the Moshiach, the days of the Messiah? What's the meaning of it all? All right, so when we look into Masechta Sukkah, it's on 29a. We find an incredible mushal there. We find an incredible analogy. And it talks all about the meaning behind the solar eclipse and what message Hashem is trying to send. So it talks about that if the sun is struck, if there's a solar eclipse, it's a siman ra. It's a bad omen for the world. We got to watch out here. And it gives a mushal, it gives an analogy. So there's a human king, and he throws this great Suda. He throws a fancy banquet, a feast for all of his servants. But then, during the Suda, the king becomes angry, and then he orders another servant to come and take the lantern, the panas, and remove it, and let all of his servants sit in darkness. All right, so we have a couple questions. So we'll deal with the second question first. All right, so who is the servant that Hashem orders to take the lantern? So the Oracle Laner, he says something fascinating. He says that it doesn't say that Hashem's ordering, or the king's ordering, the lantern to be extinguished. Chas v'shalom, Hashem's not turning out the sun, destroying the sun, and then we wouldn't have life at all. He's just asking for the servant to remove the lantern from the banquet. And so what the Oracle Ner says is what the servant of Hashem is. It is the moon. Hashem orders the moon to go in front of the sun, and then blocking out the sun during the solar eclipse. And then we're sitting in darkness. B'ezrat Hashem, only for a couple of minutes here. I think during totality it can be 2 to 4 minutes long. Okay, so then we learned something really fascinating. The Rambam in Mora Nevuchim, in the Guide for the Perplexed, he says an incredible teaching that every planet, every star, Hashem appoints a malach. He appoints an angel over that star, over that planet, and that's why it says in Tehillim that Hashem gives names to all the stars, because each star has the malach, the angel appointed over it, and the name of that malach is the name of that star or that planet. And then, according to this, the orbits of the planets, the orbits of the stars, it's the malach, it's this angel guiding them in their orbit, and it does it according to the ratzon of Hashem, the will of Hashem. It's a really incredible thing. Okay, now, who are the servants? Who is the big question? Who are the servants that Hashem gets mad at? Who are the servants that the great king, who is he mad at? So Rebbe Meir, the first thing he says it's the Jewish people. So why us? He says because we're used to makos. We're used to getting punishments and yisurim from Hashem. And unfortunately, through Jewish history, we've had the destruction of the first temple and the second temple on Tisha B'Av. I mean, we had just all throughout Jewish history, we've had just Spanish inquisitions and the pogroms, and we've had plagues, and we've had crusades. We've had will bring us up to our very modern pogrom on October the 7th. But unfortunately, we're accustomed to in the Holocaust, the terror, the destruction in the 20th century of the Nazis, Yamak Shemo. So unfortunately, according to Rebbe Meir, the Jewish people were accustomed to punishments, and it's a sign, Chas v'shalom, that the king is maybe angry at us. Hashem's angry at us. Now, Tana Rabbanan, the rabbis teach in a brisa that actually a solar eclipse is a bad sign for the Oved Kochavim, the worshippers of the stars. And generally this is talking about Rome and the Western world. They follow the solar calendar. If we go back to ancient Rome, they worship the sun. They had a false god of Ozara called Sol Invictus, the invincible sun. And they actually worship the sun. And you can say in some ways, the modern religion of the Roman Empire, they kind of worship this son of God, God kind of thing going on. So we haven't strayed too far. But the Roman calendar follows the solar year. And so it's a bad sign for them. If it's a lunar eclipse, unfortunately it's a bad sign for Yisrael, because we're compared to the moon. We wax and wane like the moon. David HaMelech, the great King David. When Moshiach comes, his kingdom, we say it waxes and wanes through our exiles and our redemptions, and the moon's compared to us, and we have a lunar year, and really we would be out of sync just like the Yishmaelim, like the Arabs, except every 2 or 3 years, as in this year, we put in an Adar Sheni, and then we adjust it also to the sun, but we really have a lunar calendar. So the lunar eclipse is a bad sign for us. Okay, so then the Gemara says if it's, we see the eclipse in the morning, right, when the sun's in the east, as it is now, it's a bad sign for the east, the eastern part of the world. If, as it is going to be today, if it's going to be on the west, we're going to see it here in Baltimore around 3:15 to 3:21, like somewhere around there is going to be our maximum eclipse. I think we're going to get up to about 88%, 87%. So if the eclipse is seen in the west as it's going to be today, it's a bad sign for the western part of the world. And the eclipse is going over America, so we talk about, is it a bad sign for the USA? And if it's in the middle of the sky, if the eclipse comes during noon, it's a bad sign for the whole world. Why America? I mean, America has been a great refuge for the Jewish people. Like, why would this be a bad sign for America? And unfortunately, we've seen the Biden administration has funneled $100 billion into Iran. And Iran is the mastermind. They're the drivers between this horrible attack, this massacre, this modern-day pogrom, Nazi atrocities on the Shabbos, Shemini Atzeres, Simchas Torah, on October the 7th, and they financed it. And it's really saddening. And even after the attack, I mean, Biden ran over there to give more money to the Palestinians and gave them billions more, gave them billions before the attack, billions after. Even after 3 American soldiers were killed by the Iranians, he recently gave them another billion in the last month or so. But it happened 185 days ago. And why would Hashem be angry at the West? 185 days ago, the world witnessed this horrible atrocity, this horrible massacre, and we saw these beautiful young Jewish women, and they were brought captive to Gaza, and we saw the blood all over their pants. And did the world send their armies? Did any nation, the most powerful nation in the world, America, did it send one soldier into Gaza to even rescue the Americans there? Did one nation in the world come to avenge these young women and the rest of the men and the older people and even the little Bibas family, these young children? Did anyone send anyone to avenge them, to rescue them? So if you had to ask why the king is mad, it's not that hard to figure out. And today, the Biden administration, they pressure Israel to end the war without the rescue of the hostages, to trade more terrorists for hostages. And Sinwar himself was released in the Gilad Shalit deal. And once again, more terrorists, more murderers have to be released instead of the rescue of the hostages. And it's America, it's the UN, it's Europe. They pressure Israel to end it without the rescue of the hostages. And you don't have to look much farther to see why the king is angry and why we're seeing this simon today, why we're seeing the solar eclipse today. So if during the eclipse, if the sun looks red during the eclipse, it's a sign of war. And unfortunately, we have war already. We have war between Israel and Hamas. We have a potential greater war between Iran and Israel, or Iran and America, whichever way that's going to go. If the sun looks black, it's a sign of arrows of famine coming into the world because it's black like the goat's hair. It's a sign of famine. And if it looks dark red, it's a sign of both war and famine. Okay, so we're going to turn to the lighter side. We're going to bring out the sun again. Could this be a sign of Moshiach? How is this, if the king is angry, how could it be a sign of Moshiach? And it says in the Gemara, you will not find that any nation is struck whose angel is not struck with it. So who is the Malach of Edom? Who is the guardian angel? The Sar Shel Esav. Who is the guardian angel of Edom, of the Roman Empire, even in its modern day Western forms? Who is it? It's the Yetzer Hara. It's the evil impulse. It's the Satan, the adversary. His other role is the Malach HaMavet, the angel of death. And his days may be growing short. And his final battle with Mashiach ben Yosef may be rapidly approaching. So we could see the end. It may be a simon that this is going to be who's struck. We could see the end to evil in the world and the triumph of good in the world. And it may be a simon that we are close to Mashiach. And it could be the end of the Gullus Edom, the end of our exile, and the beginning of the Gula, the beginning. So, do we need to worry? Rabbi Meir says, better watch out. We're used to getting struck. Do the Jewish people need to be worried? And the Gemara says something incredible. It says, Bisman Yisro sin ritzono shel makom. In the times where the Jewish people do the will of Hashem, when we follow Hashem, we follow His Torah, we learn His Torah, we do His mitzvos, ein misyar'in mikol elu. We don't have to worry of any of these things. We don't have to worry about any of these heavenly signs. And he brings a pasuk from Yirmiyah. The Gemara brings a pasuk from Yirmiyah 10:2 from Jeremiah the prophet. And it says, Shenem Mar, as it's written, Ko Amar Hashem, El Derek HaGoyim Al Tilmaldu. And Hashem says, do not learn the ways of the nations. It says, Ume Osos HaShemayim Al Techatu. And from the signs that are in the heavens, do not be afraid. Ki Yichatu HaGoyim Mehema. Even though that the nations are afraid from them. And it's strange, we live in this age of the fantasy of atheism, where people are excited for the solar eclipse, even though the king's angry, and I don't think they know the meaning behind any of this. But B'ezrat Hashem, this is Yom Kippur Katan today. We are right before tomorrow, which is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. This is the month of Pesach. This is the month of Passover. This is the month of Gula. B'ezrat Hashem, this is a simon. When we follow the Ratzon of Hashem, when we follow the will of Hashem, we're going to see great things, B'ezrat Hashem and Nisan. And immediately, that we should see the immediate release of all the hostages from Gaza, the defeat of the evil Hamas, the defeat of all the terrorist organizations, all the Fatah and the PLO and the Islamic Jihad and ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all these Rishayim. And we see the defeat of the wicked Persian Empire, the modern day Haman and Achashverosh, and we'll see the redemption of the Jewish people. And the world will know that we are Hashem's people, and our love cannot be broken for Hashem, and our Hashem's love cannot be broken for us. Enjoy the eclipse today. May it be a simon bracha, a sign of blessing for the Jewish people in the world. And I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet and Good Torah.